Hello everyone, this is Vathani. Good evening, good morning or good afternoon, wherever you are. I am glad that you are on the call or listening to this on the recording, and thank you very much for making that time and committing to be on this call really, because we are hoping to go through a slightly different format to the kind of support system that I've been providing for the last sort of 4 days. I'm combining the monthly free webinar calls with the OCD to Oasis to Calm support program, or just a support system that I wanted to do. So welcome to all of you. The format is very simple. The first half is going to be a kind of walkthrough, if you like, on the thing that I wanted to cover the most, because it's very relevant to what is happening all around the world and how your recovery is impacted and what you can do about it. So I'm going to try and make it as specific as possible so you can hopefully walk away with some strategies and suggestions. Some will resonate with you, some won't, but you can tell me, you can give me some feedback as to what you'd like to see more of, what you'd like to hear more of. All right, let's get cracking. So the topic today is 7 tips to go from survival to thriving, especially because of the climate that we are currently find ourselves in. It's completely taken us by surprise. We didn't think it was as serious that we've had viruses and health concerns before, but never anything in our lifetime, I guess, escalated to the level it has. So it is a uncharted territory for most of us, and by nature that's going to trigger so many anxiety, worries and concerns over our health, over our eating patterns, over our recovery, over our family, loved ones' welfare, our financial worries, being isolated and feeling lonely and depressed, perhaps having to move in with your families and friends and families, and then finding that circumstances a little bit claustrophobic. The challenges that we face is going to come in so many folds. So I really want to make that useful. This call is really for those any situations that you find yourself and where you are triggered the most. Now, the slide, hopefully you're able to see, is the content of today. I want to make it succinct, so I'm going for seven sort of tips or generic strategies. Just to give you a quick run through the aspects that we want to really explore and get ironed out over time. It's not going to happen immediately, so let's be realistic about our expectation. It's going to highlight the areas that we will hopefully work on and give you a sense of real confidence as to knowing that, right, if I can just tweak this bit, if I can just improve this by even 20%, if I can just manage this anxiety by, certain level, right, then you're starting to gain control. Then you're starting to stabilize your world around you, at least the inner world. When you've got your inner world regulated, much more controllable, much more confident, addressing the world outside of it becomes so much easier, especially in recovery. So that's my hope line message to you. Let us focus on controlling our inner self, because there are so many things that we cannot control outside. I mean, that's just beyond our control. How we get infected, who is going to go down with coronavirus, who's going to lose that, the job or the income stream. The whole environment has changed. All sorts of things most of those things we cannot control. The control is outside of us. But the kind of controls that we can look at is very much on this slide that you're looking at now. Things like creating that inner safety, creating less of that overwhelm that leads to fear and anxiety on a daily basis. Whether you're narrowing world, your anxiety over food or the lack of food, people, claustrophobia, or people sort of not understanding that you have a recovery issues, or they may not even be aware that you have a challenge with restriction of food or bulimia or anorexia, binge eating. They may be totally oblivious to what you're going through. So bear that in mind when you find yourself in the circumstances of living with family and friends. But one of the things that we can do, especially if they're in the know, is to seek help. Now, that could come in the form of friendship and friends and family who are already in the know. It may be somebody like me who you can turn to and not feel like, gosh, I don't even have the money to turn, just to be able to access me. Some of you will find me on Facebook. Some of you will discover me on YouTube channels. Some of you might have stumbled across my Twitter feeds. Some of you might be already inside my community where you receive email contact. And a few of you are my current clients. And I'm lucky to have you. And I am grateful because, if I think about it, overnight, I've switched from going from having a face-to-face luxury of a clinic that I loved so much to suddenly having to adapt and very quickly invent myself to doing these sessions to those of you who are able to do these sessions online. And so that is a blessing, really, blessing in disguise for me, because I'm grateful, because that still allows me to continue what I love doing, making a difference still from a very big difference, but it doesn't matter about the distance anymore. Technology allows us to be together. And so I'm grateful for you, for your continued trust in me. The one I want to really elaborate on, which is the number 4, is the building resilience. Again, it's obviously the inner resilience we're talking about, not the outer parameters of circumstances that we cannot control. And number 5 is another very important thing, and this is something my clients will appreciate me investing time on. I know I kind of pull them back into this. It's about continually growing and self-reinventing. If we don't do that, if your identity does not change from the moment you've entered into coronavirus environment, and in the next 2-3 months, if your identity does not become resilient or grow and change and evolve, chances are when the stress and strain of these things dissipate and we're allowed to go back to our own lives, you're going to be in the same position, if not weaker. So continually evolving, whether you're in recovery or whether you're in a maintenance stage or whether you are literally in a great place but just being affected by this coronavirus situation, the continual investment in yourself, it's a willing statement, it's a mindset, it's a intentional thing that you have to dedicate yourself to doing on a regular basis, really. And that is to keep looking at your blind spots, keep looking at some of your ways in which you can, boost your self-esteem, your ability to cope better with things, and managing anxiety, overwhelm, fears, and things like that, managing people. Those are all part of the skills, and that's something that we learn even as just normal human beings. But when we have the complexity of eating or disorderly eating on top of it, we just have to be much more vigilant on those areas. So I'm going to go into a little bit more details on that. And the last 2 is just obviously just sometimes, we can be so in our head. We need to just shift focus, and we need to come outside and give ourselves a healthy distraction at a time like this. Otherwise, everything becomes blurry. The boundaries become blurry. We just walk around aimlessly, purposelessly, and really bit in a woozy cloud, really, and feeling really lost because we just miss our previous life so much. But if we can sort of sometimes shift that focus and time and energy and emphasis outside of ourselves, so we become in service to others, or having a purpose, or doing something to add value, something like that, we suddenly become a bit more focused with our time. We become a bit more consolidated in our own anxiety, because we know our fears and our anxieties are just much smaller than the quest that we are embarking on. So I want to elaborate on that as well. And the final commodity, and this is an absolute must to everybody listening to this, is optimism. The moment we lose that optimism in this doom and gloom environment, it will just rob us of every ounce of our energy, every ounce of our willingness, every ounce of our determination. And then before you know it, we're listening to every single politician, every little trend, every little highlight, and every little death count, and every little failed systems and what else is going disastrously, all of those things. So right now, more than ever before, that last component, that optimism, is vital, absolutely vital. So bear that in mind. And then finally we will go into about 20 to half an hour of question and answers and chat. I know some of you are new to this concept of who I am and this monthly webinar, so this is what I look like. If you haven't seen me before, this is Vathani Navasothy, and some of what I've listed there is just some of my qualifications. I didn't list them all because it's not always necessarily relevant, but I just needed to reassure you as to who is speaking to you right now is qualified, competent, experienced, 29 years of experience in eating disorder world and counseling world. So you're just going to feel hopefully reassured, and some of the bottom ones are the affiliated memberships that I carry and who are the regulating bodies that I subscribe to. Okay, so that's just a quick little reassurance for you. So let's just get to the content of what we are here to really learn. So the first one is creating safety. Now, safety is, how the heck do you create safety when everything else is just going pear-shaped? There is ways to do that. We can create structure. Structure comes in the way of routine. Routine like, okay, let's regulate our eating. Let's regulate some form of physical activity. They don't have to be hardcore exercises, but just some gentle physical activities, whether it's in your own back garden, in your bedroom, whether you're allowed to go outside to the nearest park. You know, some kind of structure, when you do it, how often you might do it, and having that little structure. One of my community members is an instructor. So any of you fellow instructors out there, we're not talking about extending yourself in service of others, but this is for yourself. You know, what is it that you need? What is the bare essential minimum that you need? And it shouldn't be about compensation for anything you've eaten. That's very important, okay? So it's about, you know, the preparing and planning ahead so you know when your meal time is going to be. So you have a structure around, you know, sort of eating 3 meals, even however small it feels. It doesn't matter if you're feeling that fear is that you're going to put on some weight. You know, maybe just focus on smaller portions, but they have to be regular. That's the key part of creating safety, by creating routine and structure. If you're brave enough and if you are confident enough to include things like 2 snacks as well, all the better. That's what you will build up to. But at the moment, you might not be there yet, and that's fine too. Okay, just bear in mind this is truly uncharted territories, which means you're not going to jump ahead and trying to be this normal person in embracing recovery in the way that you would if our world was normal at this point in time. So let's just establish safety. Let's go with what is comfortable. Let's go with what you're managing without compensation, what you're managing without any kind of kickbacks that you have to also encounter and plan for, okay? Slowly, over days, not just even weeks, you build up that momentum by increasing a bit more of the volume or increasing the frequency of the meal times, and then eventually you will land in this beautiful vision of, you know, eating regular 3 meals and a couple of snacks in between as well. But if you're not there, like I said, please don't be in an anxious place about that. Just do what you can do now. Eat what you can now. Eat what's available to you right now. Don't even worry about whether they fit the 3, 5 portions of fruits and vegetables and carbohydrates and protein rations that we talk about in a nutritional content. Everything is going up in the air. So it's okay if you have to turn to ready meal for safety, so be it. If you have to rely on somebody else, a family member, cooking for you where you would have been cooking all these time, so be it. If you have to, think about eating food in a different country that you're not kind of used to, so be it. So again, really loosen that structure of what you used to be reliant on, because at this point in time, that is so crucial. All right? And also trusting yourself, like you should know whether it feels safe enough to do something, safe enough to eat something, safe enough to talk to somebody that might be triggering. Trust yourself. That part of yourself is part of creating safety for your own self. So you're taking personal responsibility in allowing only what you can manage and not get into any situation where it could result in overwhelm or anxiety or fears. And then, of course, trusting others that you genuinely feel that you can put your faith in. That might be your immediate inner sanctums only, and that's fine. Or your best friends, and that's fine. If you have those people in your life and you're lucky enough to have them also, on a Skype distance or a phone call distance or living in the same house as you, brilliant. Utilize that support system that's available to you and be able to trust. But give them instructions as to what feels safe. So, if you need to let your mum know that you only want certain foods in the cupboards that allocated for you because it gives you safety, then, give mum that list of food that you feel safe, and then it's up to her, hopefully, to be able to find those ingredients if she's able to, given the circumstances of what might not be possible also, and then, doing her best to cook around those kind of items. So, again, it's personal responsibility, personal ownership, but being able to trust others that you're able to trust too. Okay? And also the processes, it's like, okay, how are you going to cook it if certain things are not there, if you run out of oil, if you run out of grill, certain things are going to just not be there anymore, and that's going to create unsafety feelings. But just improvise, be innovative, be creative, be playful. See if this is a good time to kind of come outside, slightly outside of your comfort zone. And I'll cover that in your reinventing and self-growing phase, which is the last stage of your 7 tips to your evolving from survival to thriving. Okay? So let's now go on to the next parameter. Second most important thing is releasing fears and anxiety, that crazy overwhelm that's, paralyzing and crippling everybody. Now, what can you do? This is where self-care becomes absolutely imperative, absolutely vital. It's essential. You've got to marry yourself to that dedication. You've got to factor that in 2-3 times a day, not just once a day, but daily, but just 2-3 times a day at least. Now, what does that look like? That could look like taking time out, going for a walk, running a long hot bath, really allowing that half an hour to yourself, for example. Listen to a soothing music, for example. Talking to your best friend or people who uplift you. Really need to stay away from, toxic people who can trigger you. So, who inspires you, who uplifts you, who energizes you when you put the phone down after talking to them. Those are the people that you want to focus on talking to. So build your safety net, build your self-care, build your reward system, build your treats around the house that you can do, that you can indulge in. I don't mean treats as food. Treats are like allocating yourself half an hour to read a book, and being all right with that. This is not the time, and I'm going to speak to all my wonderful people listening, to those perfectionist people in the audience, because your voice is going to be going into, I need to make everything productive, I need to be purposeful, I need to be driven, I need to be doing something, I need to be doing something, I need to be achieving. Take a deep breath. Now is not the time where you need to, unless of course your job calls on that. That's okay. If it's within the capacity of 9 to 5, fine. Be that role, be that identity. But the moment you slip outside of it, or during even the break times and lunchtime, you got to step right out of that and be absolutely easy, embrace flow, relax into things, take longer to do something more than you would normally. Or if you take a task and do it for half an hour, now take maybe an hour to do it. That would be a great way of pacing yourself and enjoying it. And that also creates opportunity for you to be able to mindfully just go into everything mindfully eating, mindfully having a bath, mindfully walking, mindfully talking to people that you care. It's a great opportunity. Don't even think of this as a very awful, awful situation that's happening to us. Think of it as an opportunity. You know, Chinese or Japanese word for danger is actually opportunity. Part of it is a truth to character, but one of the character is actually opportunity. So let's just embrace that mentality and the philosophy of opportunity. Okay, we're stuck. Okay, we are bound. Okay, we're limited. Okay, we are less resourceful. But what can we do? What can we do What can we do to improve our situation in a different way? So think about prioritizing yourself, and then think about ways to make yourself feel better. It's all about self-soothing. Self-soothing, releasing that energy. And if you're some of my clients who happen to know some strategies through me, you know, this is the time to bring on your EFT. This is the time to bring on your mindful eating and being. This is definitely the time to do hypnosis. This is definitely the time to bring on, breaking status and other NLP exercises that I've taught you. You know, if you're confident, just go to town with some of those. This is the time. You know, have you done them recently? Have you made a commitment to your learning new skills that you might have learned already with me? Okay, so use those for anxiety and fear releasing technique. Right, the next one. Now that you've released your anxiety, you've made a priority of, safeguarding your environment and yourself, and you've created some kind of structure, routine, if you like, that is less rigid. Don't make it too rigid, by the way. Let's talk about the next aspect that is so need to be in place. That is seeking support. Seeking help is very important because you can't do this by yourself. None of us can. I can't. You can't. And even the best of us at some point won't be able to. That's just a fact. These are uncharted territory. These are unfathomably foreign territory for most of us. I mean, when was the last time we had a lockdown? I mean, never. Okay, I can relate to that because where I come from, some of you will know this. If you're my clients, you will know that I'm from Sri Lanka originally, and we did have a genocide in our experience when I was young, growing up in my country, and we did have curfews, and the curfews are just awful, awful things where it's not just lockdown where you can still go to the GP and go to the supermarket. It's literally lockdown like in the wartime. You just have to survive inside the house. So seeking support is such a vital, important thing, whether it's your therapist, whether it's your family member, whether it's your best friend. Having some kind of support system is a must to keep your sanity. So now it's not the time where you feel like you've got to show the world, you've got to prove to your loved ones that you're okay and you're on the recovery path, or your eating disorder isn't so rampant that you're doing okay, and so that you can get them off your back. It might not work out. Some days you'll do brilliantly well, but there are going to be days where you're just going to need that extra bit of support, extra bit of love. It's not even support in the form of you needing to achieve something or you needing to conquer something, a task-oriented thing. It may just be that you just need to be reminded that you are loved and you are held and you are supported and you are thought of. That's it, simple as that. Now, that doesn't take much for a loved one. It won't cost your friends or your family or your therapeutic community that's currently supporting you. It certainly wouldn't take anything from me for you to just reach out to me and say, hey, V, I'm struggling a bit today. Can you give me some pointers? This is what I'm struggling with. That's it. That's just humanity, isn't it? It's just basic courtesy. It's basic love. It's basic unconditional support. And that's the kind of thing that I'm talking about. If you're going towards somebody that is quite toxic because they give you support, but there's an underlying sense that they will be expecting something back from you, be careful. Because there's an agenda, there's a sense of obligation, there's a sense of people pleasing, and that will complicate even your ability to ask for that help. So there have to be people that can come easy, come without condition, give lovingly, and no judgment. That's what you're looking for. Somebody who will just extend out both their arm and say, virtually or otherwise, and say, look, I'm here for you, just let me know what I can do. And it's your role then to ask them how you want to be helped. Because it's always so much more empowering when you lead the way as opposed to them guessing and getting it wrong, especially when well-meaning family wanting to help us. Trust me, I have my mother too, same thing. But her vision of helping me is through her ways. But that way ways might not help me, and that might not be the best way for me. So, it's up to us to take some ownership at the point in time and say, look, this is how I would prefer to get that help. This is what I would need. This is how I would like you to help. Then you're clear, she is clear, they're clear, and there's no misunderstanding. And some people, it will just not happen. That communication, that type of discussion might be really, really hard because some people might be very set in their own way. And that means there's only one person or one entity that can change, and that is you. It's your decision first and foremost to ask for that help or not. And then, of course, it's your decision to whether you can attempt to explain what you need, how you want to receive that help, and then fingers crossed that they get you. If they don't get you, maybe you could a couple of times attempt to reiterate that same message. But if after a few times you've tried your best and rather than getting anxious about it, things are not working, you part. You don't stay with the same attempt to try and change that. I hope that makes sense. All right. So, you've got personal support, you've got social support, you've also got the therapeutic support from people like me who are in the industry. Okay? And that's quite important. Now, let's move to the next big aspect of what you need to focus on to survive this whole coronavirus phase that we're going to go through. I mean, that may be another 2 months. We may be out of this by then, or on an optimistic level, that would be great, wouldn't it? But if we don't, if we're locked in for another 3 months, so be it. How are we going to survive it? We can't survive it. We need to be thriving. And the thing that's going to ensure thriving is your ability to be resilient and strong and solid, staying grounded. How do you bring that about? You bring that about by focusing on your personal internal attributes. Because remember, outside stuff we can't control. That's what we call the locus of control. If that locus of control in psychological term is outside of you, you're never going to be able to physically change some of the things that you're hoping to change. Because that depends on the personalities, that depends on the system, the availability, support system. I mean, the structure, finance, you name it. There's a whole shebang of elements that's going to come into it. Whereas controlling you is far, far, far easier and far, far superior strategy that we need to embrace. So as you're trying to go from just surviving to thriving, what you need to be looking at is your image of yourself. Meaning, how do you want to perceive yourself? Do you want to see yourself as a victim of circumstances, victim of this situation? Or do you want to say, okay, enough. This is happening. This is what the situation is. These are my limits, but I don't need to feel like a victim. I can choose to feel like an empowered person in this whole situation. Such an empowering attitude to have. Then working on your confidence. Don't just work on, the things that you are good at, that people tell you that you are good at. Work on being confident about who you are, what you stand for, your ability to hold your values, your vision. It's all part of your ability to find that lost confidence. And this is something that will tie closely with your current level of self-esteem. Again, it's a very big area, and I can't go into it on this webinar, but I will cover it. I have covered it many times in the past recovery webinars. But if you're interested in some self-esteem help, let me know. Email me privately if you want to, and I can answer that for you. Now, confidence, self-esteem, very important because it's going to call on your self-evaluation of yourself, your self-awareness, your ability to self-care for yourself, your ability to cope, coping skills in terms of like, just not personalizing things, but to putting things into perspective, giving it the meaning that it needs to have, rather than thinking it's part and parcel of your attack on you, because a lot of us feel like a victim and we go into, oh, why is this always happening to me, kind of dialogue we have in our head. No, this isn't anything personal. This was never about us. This was just damn virus just got out of control. It's in that thriving state. It's affecting quite a lot of us. Yes, it's not a good news, but we can get over this. Okay, so that's very important to understand. The meanings we give it within ourselves and the way we cope with it and the coping skills that we have is such an important thing. Things like being able to communicate, being able to assertively get something across, preserving your boundaries, problem-solving abilities, bringing up your courage, bringing up your positive attitude and your mindset. All of these are resources in building self-resilience. These are the components that contributes to the full package of your self-resilient self, basically. Next component is the reinventing part of yourself, because, like I said, if we don't evolve and if we don't grow as a result of our experience of what this is teaching us, not just in recovery, we'll never get out of this. We will go out of the situation weaker than we came into it. And that is the worst case scenario. Okay? And that's not something you want. So what does growing mean? What does reinventing mean? Reinventing means you're adapting. Reinventing means you are constantly evolving into the higher version of yourself, meaning you're becoming more skilled, you're becoming more lateral thinker, you're becoming more of a resilient person that is no longer easily pushed by somebody's comments about, I don't know, images or pictures or weight or food. You are a better version of that. That is growing. That is reinventing. You could also reinvent yourself on an identity level, like what is your value, what do you want to stand for? What you might use to stand for is one thing, but now the evolved version, the growing version, needs to stand up to something far more encompassing, far more reaching, far more expansive and growing in nature. Make sense? So the growing part of it is very important, because how do you grow? You have to become more self-aware. So like, when are you being triggered? What is the environment that's pushing you? What are the people that's pushing you? What are the things that they can say that could then trigger what sort of feelings inside you? All these are very detailed self-awareness, if you think about it. And then being able to develop that skills, like, for example, you're not going to overnight become so assertive that you can tell somebody to go and take a hike when they're being so detrimental to you. But over time, you will build that vocal cord, your ability to assertively and confidently say those words out loud, not just rehearse it in your mind. Over time, it will just come out so easily without getting into a ball of, tight anxiety before those words can find themselves spoken out, basically. But that might be the first stage that you go through. First of all, you rehearse it in your mind, then it comes out. Given, all right, it will be with anxiety, but you are braving it, you're being courageous, you're becoming bolder, you're becoming indomitable, and then you're saying it out loud, even if the anxiety does cripple you for a short time. But then the next stage is you get to an easy place, relaxed stage, where it does come out, and you are able to say what you need to say to preserve you and who you are and what you stand for and what you need, but this time without any of the emotional context. no anxiety, no panic, no fear, you're not going to be worried if they reject you because you have to stand your ground and stake your claim. You're no longer worried about whether people approve of you because there's a sense of liberation inside of you. That is reinventing you. And also, reinventing means growing. Growing means you have to invest in education, you have to reinvent in skill set, you might have to reinvent in personal psychology in terms of development. You have to think about how you articulate yourself. All of those things comes into it. One before last is looking outside of self. Now, we've got way too much time sometimes in our head at the moment. Are we not? That seems to be the predominant place where we are living. It's in our head. Oh my God, what happens? Even if we are physically just guarding ourselves from one another, the fact is, even in isolation, even if you're like literally living by yourself, you can still be in your head so much. Equally, you could be in a room full of people, house full of people, and still be in your head. Especially those of you still in the throes of eating disorders. This is quite a common thing to experience because we are in our head most of the time. But when you have a physical situation like lockdown, self-isolation, this coronavirus situation where you can't go outside, you are going to be in your head. This is where healthy distraction is very important. Now, whether you are physically inside or outside, able to live with other people, whether you're on your own, it really doesn't matter. The notion of being able to escape quickly into your head becomes such a predominant thing. So you've got to learn the skill of healthy distraction. And that is part of self-care, by the way. That is part of your building self-resilience. It's all kind of weaves in together. All of these concepts are not standalone isolation things. They're skills that you will weave in and out of with everything, really. So the idea of being able to being more outside means that you want to give yourself a healthy distraction. And what that healthy distraction looks like, taking time out for yourself, doing something that you enjoy, being creative, maybe cooking skills, artistic skills, reading a course, doing a course online maybe. You name it, the world's your oyster. Get creative in brainstorming what you could be doing to get yourself out of your head and into the here and now. And that is part of mindfulness. And that is part of growing too. Now, another component of looking outside of yourself is being a supporter yourself. Suddenly you've got a purpose. Suddenly you've got a bit of an opportunity to create legacy. Whether it's your work context, whether you are an employee or you're still lucky enough to have a job and you're in a position of inspiration, you're able to lead people, you're able to line manage people, you're able to mentor people. Maybe you're in a charity that you can do online. Maybe you already have some kind of hobby that you can turn into something a bit more philanthropic in nature. Maybe you could add your value through a different way. Maybe you have a bigger vision. That is definitely the way to go about getting yourself outside of your head. And trust me, me included. If I had too much time and there's only so many client sessions I'm doing at the moment, then what? I'm keeping myself busy with gardening. I'm helping myself with the notion of going outside for my daily exercise. I've got to go and see my pond or water feature or river or stream or something that gives me a bit of a green space. And then there is this aspect of what I'm doing with you guys, which is I've created the OCD to Oasis of Calm. That's just my way of keeping myself busy. But in the process, I'm giving. In the process, I'm utilizing my skills. In the process, I'm thinking I am serving you or anybody that needs me in the specialism of disorderly eating, for example. Suddenly I find my purpose. Suddenly I am making myself useful. And to me, that is a very good way of boosting and maintaining my self-esteem. It's definitely making me grounded. It's definitely making me not go into my head too much. I might have some upsets with somebody or a family member or somebody. And then I need to ground myself. And once I've done my walk or when I've done my bath or shower or what have you, I then need to focus on something that's outside of my field. So this is the great thing about creating this particular commodity in where you become the supporter, or you become purposeful, you become the legacy creator, you become somebody that adds value to somebody else out there or something else out there as a core. Suddenly, you are the one creating structure and safety and inspiration for other people who need your skill set. How wonderful is that? What a beautiful privilege is that? What a wonderful way to get out of your head too. Does that make sense? So, think about if you're playing small and if you want a little bit of a hobby. I'm not talking about, money earning creations or business front or something that you can utilize. I'm talking about something that you could do voluntarily. I know in the UK, NHS was asking for volunteers. Now they've got like oversubscription of 9,000 people all subscribe themselves to helping others, doing whatever they can help. They may be whether delivery service or driving a person from A to B or picking up medication from the pharmacy and dropping it off or doing a bit of shopping for the neighborhood community. You could find yourself purposeful all of a sudden. And when you're doing that, do you think you're in your head? Of course not. You are there for somebody else. You're there for a purpose. You're there for a cause. You are living outside of your own fears, and those fears suddenly feel less important. Of course, they'll flare up. Now and again, they'll come up, but generally speaking, they're just in a very great place. Okay, so that's a great way of bringing yourself back to a grounding place, where you're in this service place, where you're in a giving space, and you feel your self-esteem soaring high as a result of that. So find something, get creative, do a bit of brainstorming. What can I do? Online, offline? I mean, certain things will be limited because of the circumstances with the virus, but, think outside the box. What can you do? I mean, people out there, communities out there coming together, they're standing on their balcony playing musical instruments just to cheer up their neighborhood. Wow, what a skill to have. Now that is purpose-driven. That is being a supporter in your own creative genius, really. So maybe you can brainstorm and find something that you're good at, that you'd love to do. Maybe you can share your art. Maybe you can share a skill. Just think outside the box. Maybe over the coming 48 hours, that's the task that you will create for yourself. Give yourself that thing to say, I'm going to find the thing that I can contribute. Maybe for just a pocket of people, it might be for a huge amount of people, community, whatever. Just think outside the box. Lastly, that optimism is such an important thing. It is part of bringing back the hope that we've lost. It is about bringing back, fostering a positive attitude and looking at the whole thing with the glasses half full rather than, oh my God, doom and gloom, victim mentality, glasses empty situation. Optimism is such an imperative commodity for survival, and then going and switching from that survival to thriving, because it is what creates us. It's what makes us into the greater visioned people, souls that we are born to be on this planet. Hold on to that sense of optimism and hope. Now, even I am not exempt to the days where I feel doom and gloom. Of course, we all have it in us. What I'm saying is that if majority of the time when you're awake, if majority of those hours can be purposeful, driven, enjoyable, having fun, making a bit of difference on the way, and holding on to that optimistic, hopeful place, then you know what? You've had a successful day. It really can be defined like that. Let me just share some inspirational quotes that I thought that was just superb while you're formulating your thoughts. Really beautiful, and I just threw this together and I just thought, oh, this is beautiful. So I just wanted to share it with you. The first one is, be so strong on the inside. Nothing on the outside can affect you inner well-being. So when we are, and how true is that? When we are solid and when we are grounded, when we are in that solid, calm place. I used to be in the, I used to volunteer long time ago in St. John's Ambulance Service. I also trained as a frontline paramedic for the reserves in the Army Force as well. You know, we are trained to be resilient and solid and strong inside, because only if we are that can we impact the world outside and the crisis that's unfolding outside. If we're wobbly, if we are so weak and we are vulnerable, and that won't shift overnight, but that's our aspiration anyway. That's our aim, is to look to strengthening that inside. Then we can't be any use to other people. So, you know, focus for the time being, be selfish, be self-indulgent in strengthening and bringing that strength up from inside. And then over time, you can be a greater purpose, greater service to the outside world. The next one, it just made me kind of chuckle really. Worrying doesn't stop, and the bad stuff just from, worrying doesn't stop the bad stuff from happening, and how true is that? But it does just stop you from enjoying the good stuff. Because even right now, even in this moment, even in this midst of this disaster, there are good stuff going on. I mean, we get to be more closer to the families that we hardly ever see and spend quality time with. We get to self-indulge in more long hours and hours of reading, for example. You know, we've got time to make a difference in a different way, rather than just chasing money or career or some kind of agenda or a project, for example. You know, we are getting to be more resourceful within ourselves. How great are those opportunities? So, you know, in the midst of it, you know, we get to go and smell the beans and smell the roses. We get to be thankful for the health that we do have. All of those things are good stuff. You know, the people that we are lucky enough to have in our life. What if one of them caught coronavirus? What if one of them suddenly died the next day? You know, if they're alive, they're kicking, if they're beautiful, if they're in a great place of, you know, zest and vitality, don't we have something to be thankful about? Of course we do. So, you know, it's about that perspective. It's about switching that around. Now, here's a quote that I absolutely adore, because it's from one of my aspirational people that ever lived, and that's from Nelson Mandela, and it goes something like this. The greatest glory in living lies not in the never falling, but in the rising every time we fall. So falling is inevitable, like the last quote said. Things will happen that are not so good. We will fall. This is a classic example of what we're doing is falling. However, you know, if we can just rise soon after we fall, that's the glory. That's the amazing spirit of human resilience. So your aspiration is just to go for that. Next quote. I love this too. Choose to focus on time, energy, and conversations around people who inspire you and uplift you and support you. I mean, this is something that I've already said. To grow into your happiest, strongest, wisest self. You know, so this is the time where we limit the naysayers, the downers, the critical people, the constant drainers, the negative people from our source, because they're not going to lift us, they're not going to inspire us, they're never going to, you know, add value to us. They may, but there may be some kind of a expectation or some kind of a trade-off that they expect you to do, and you know what? That kind of transactions are not good for us right now. So stay away from people like that. If we all know somebody. Let's save that for when we are out of this coronavirus situation. Okay, there's another person I absolutely adore. I mean, I've been to this guy's house so many times. It's turned into a national house that you can visit, and it's an art gallery as well. None other than Winston Churchill, or Sir Winston Churchill. Absolutely adore this man. And one of his quotes is, "A pessimism sees the difficulty in every opportunity." So that's what a pessimist does. But an optimist sees the opportunity in every difficulty. They switch it around. Pessimist sees difficulties, but the optimist sees opportunity in that difficulty. How beautiful is that? So it's really if anything it resonates with you, if that can resonate with you as well as this one, I am stronger than my challenges, and my challenges are making me stronger. I am stronger than my challenges, and my challenges are making me stronger. And I would even go as far as to add, I'm stronger than my challenges and my fears. Now let's face it, for most of us, the big challenges are emotional based. Those are the trigger based. And those are the emotional content of anxiety, overwhelm, and fear. So, just you're stronger. You're way, way bigger than any of those put together. And lastly, your day awaits. Every day is a new day. Every day has an opportunity for new thoughts. Every day there's a possibility of that strength and new possibilities that you can create and you alone can create for yourself, and then hopefully then share that with other people. So let's move on. I think in that case we will wrap with the reminder. You are definitely bigger than all of these situations that's being thrust upon you. Remember that. And whenever you lose perspective, just remind yourself gently and lovingly that you're in your head, and to come out of that head and just go out there and do something. Whether it's self-caring activity, whether it's engaging activity, whether it's fun activity, or hopefully I want it to be fun activity for you, or a activity that reinvents you, allows you to grow a bit wider, allows you to be a bit more purposeful, allows you to connect outside of your head. Whatever it is, hang on to that optimism. Be remembered that, you are in an unusually crazy time, which means none of this is your fault, none of this is necessary to keep you stuck in that place of victimhood. So let's come out of that victim place and just thrive. Let's decide to thrive. And that means, looking and working on your resilience, looking and actively seeking help when you need it the most, and then being creative and playful with your inner child and environment around you, the world around you, the people around you. So go out there and make it all happen. If you need any of my help, just you know where to get hold of me. The details are on that screen as well, I believe. Yeah, I think so. You can see that, can't you? You can just substitute info@awakeningdawn.com. Otherwise, it's Vathani or help at bulimia hope. Sorry, let's just keep it simple. Vathani at bulimiahope.com. Okay? Thank you, everybody. Thank you for joining me live. I really appreciate your company because it makes it useful to tailor it to you. And also, those of you listening to it, making time to listen to it on the replay, thank you for making this time. I hope this has been useful, going through the essence of what is going to help you to navigate you safely out of that kind of compulsion, out of kind of the obsessiveness, and into a calmer place of existence. And that's what we need to be for over the next coming days, next coming weeks, next coming months, really. I wish you well. Please, please stay safe and well and happy and contented. Lots of love and take care of yourself. Bye for now, everybody.